Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video and another of the how to build video series, this time focusing on the new Antagonist meta with the Emils, Shinsha, and Cleash, and upcoming units in like 3 weeks or something like that. But we do need to go over a number of different things, what this team is focused on, what orbs they want to do, what options you have. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. All right, really quickly, we're going to add this in as a new section of the video, but going over what charms you should be looking for the teams. There really is only one major charm you need to really worry about, and that is orange protection gauge by 40% for 3 turns. This is going to be the most impactful thing for you. It helps you cycle Emils more often and faster and more efficiently. Combine that with the rainbow orbs, combine that with the other gauge increases you get off the team. This is going to be your bread and butter charm for this entire meta. And then the only thing next to that I would really even attempt to consider would be a light attack charm. So this one, 10% light attack. Because Shinsha and the single target nuker are going to be light, if you find you're already cycling well enough with the mills, or you don't really need that much protection gauge, then you could do just a damage charm here. The light buff would be the best option. After that would be the AoE charm. The AoE damage charm, which is somewhere around here, right here, increases all allies' all target attack by 8%. The alt damage charm, you're already getting 100% from Shinsha. It's not really that impactful. And the pierce power charm is, what, 8%? So, I mean, I guess you can do that. But these are very low tier options. The best one is going to be that protection gauge on orange charm, more than anything else that we have available right now. Okay, so thankfully, this team is actually well built for Orb Changers because Emils is changing all orbs to orange, giving us 2 rainbows. Shinsha is changing all Antagonist orbs, and then Cleash is doing a special convert for orange, one blue and 1 green to 2 oranges. So honestly, especially for a burst team, you don't really need any other orb changers. Cleash is free to play. Obviously, if you don't have Shinsha, we have different problems. And Emils, if you don't have him, we have other problems. But we'll talk about substitutions for Emils later on in the video. So honestly, you don't really need any other orb changers for this team. You're not going to be in the fight for 8 turns like a stacking team. You're here in like 4, maybe 5 turns. And you really don't need to worry about it too much. Bringing a lot of converters for a burst team where the protector is already converting is kind of unnecessary. But as far as other orange converters go, we do have the 5-star free-to-play Ranga from the Wielder of Magic meta. He's actually pretty good for this team, not only because of his orb change that hits both him and Cleash because they're both Wielder of Magic, he's also got a little bit of Pierce power that lasts for 2 turns, which this is a Pierce-focused team. He's got extra skill points on oranges, which we don't really need because Emils is doing that, but he can at least also handle the turn 1 convert if you maybe swap him and Shinsha around. So if we do this, that way the first 2 slots are both Wielder of Magic units. You can use either Cleash's convert or Ranga's convert. Either one of those works. Another orange special converter is going to be the very, very, very old Light Hinata. She has a special convert for oranges, and then also the Fire Slime Rimuru that came out for the Scarlet Bonds movie that you can get from the Flashback Crystals and Serial Code Bazaar. He has both of his skills is a one convert, 1 green to orange and 1 blue to orange. So we do have other options for orange converters. It's just, again, not super necessary if you have Cleash, Shinsha, and Emils already doing the bulk of that for you. Alright, Ult Swappers, it is not a super huge thing, again, because we're not here for 8 turns where you have ults for literal days. but it still is going to be kind of important if you want to make things run efficiently. Cleash has a built-in or ult swap already. It's a single ult swap, and it only hits light units. So if you don't have an ult for Shinsha, or you have an ult for someone else who's not light, including Cleash herself, like, she's not going to be able to change that. I think that's a horrible design, and I'm not a big fan of it. But because Emils changes every orb to orange, it doesn't really matter who you bring as far as an alt swapping character. You could bring New Year's Blessing Shinsha. She's kind of a... Oh, you don't really need her because it's not a crit team. The alt buff we're already getting from the new Shinsha, but she does have a single alt swap. We do have Idol Shuna, who is changing 2 alt orbs to greens. But again, if Emils can convert those greens to oranges, it's not really that much of an impact. It's just that once you hit Inferno 1, 2, and 3, they really don't want you to use a synergy buff anymore. But EX2, you can certainly use this Shuna and get some benefit out of her. Another option would, of course, be the mainstays, Blanc and Overlord Shizu. So let's see, both of them. Blanc, not overly useful unless you're bringing another synergy character to help Shinsha do that, but we're still going to get the weakness strike, which definitely does help. Overlord Shizu, much, much better option if you have access to her, because she's doing a triple alt swap to green, which you can just use Emils to change those to oranges or rainbows after that. She's got weakness strike. She's got alt resistance down. She is going to be your best option for any difficulty of the beatdown battle to help Shinsha do more damage. So if you do have access to her, I would very much tell you to bring her. Other alt swappers, like the free-to-play units, Glenda, Rieger, Gobta, it's like they do work, but their orb changes, apart from that, are not really helping. Glenda, with her synergy buff, is only for commander allies, or physical allies, one of the two. Shinsha's not on either of those teams, so all of these other free-to-play alt swappers, while free-to-play and easily accessible, not going to help you as much as the other summonable premium characters would, just purely because they have much better other secondary skills to help the rest of the team. But it doesn't matter what kind of alt swapper you bring, it doesn't matter what color it's going to become, because Emils will change it to oranges regardless. Alright, damage supports. This is the team that I am running personally for all of my Inferno runs. Cleash, Shinsha, Overlord Shizu, we just got done talking about her alt swap and her buff. Visions of Coleus Violet, while her orb change is unnecessary for this team, you cannot avoid a 100% magic buff for a magic-focused character. So she was very, very, very powerful for this team. And then we've got Exalted Champion Rimuru, who I did not mention in the alt swap section, but he does have a one-time alt swap to rainbow orbs. So if you have 3 alts, which you're going to have a lot of alts on this team because we're sending mostly oranges, you could, in theory, use his triple alt swap, get 3 rainbows, use Emils to get 2 more rainbows, and then you would have 5 rainbow orbs and an orange. That's very powerful. He is very, very good for this team, and the fact that you can only use his alt swap once isn't really affected because you're not really going to need it more than once anyways before you end up nuking and just killing the bosses, the stage in general. And then he's got a 70% attack buff, which is generic, and you can hold it on Shinsha, and it's relatively cheap, 55 points, and it's fairly powerful. So this is a very, very strong team. Now, obviously, if you don't have Overlord Shizu, you could drop us down into Idol Shuna. She's still got an alt swap. She's got the synergy buff, so if you're not really worried about going past EX2, she will certainly work. Violet, if you have Rain, that'll work too. She's got a much smaller magic buff, but it's still a magic buff that you can help give to Shinsha. And then Rimuru, I think, is the most unnecessary character here, and you could very, very much easily replace him with Light Milim. 45% attack buff and AoE light resistance down if she's skill fused, which you don't have to have her skill fused. 45% attack, still good. If you have Space Rimuru down here, 40% attack. And if he's skill fused, you have 30% extra alt resistance down on top of that. Very powerful right there. It's actually more damage than what the Exalted Champion Rimuru would give you, but he is physical, so he's not going to help the EX board for Shinsha. Pretty much any attack buffer will work here. And then on top of that, you could also bring Light Leon for the light buff, or you could bring the 2nd anniversary Hinata, who's got the all element buff. So no matter what, no matter who else is getting it, you're going to get an element buff from that. Like, these options work too. So if you want to bring old characters, you could bring Light Milim, you could bring Light Leon, and you're still going to be giving very decent attack stacks to Shinsha, who's already getting the 100% alt buff, who's getting pierce rate from Emils, who's doing pierce resistance down. If you wanted to bring the Wielder of Magic Ranga, he's got that 30% pierce power for magic allies, and this is a pierce focused team. You could totally 100% use that as well. Other characters you can bring, the other Light Lumi that came out alongside Light Milim. It's more expensive than Leon. It's 80 points, and it's 60% light attack. So you're not really getting that much, apart from making it a more expensive skill. But I mean, if you don't have Leon and you do have Lumi, great, excellent. Alt resistance down units, you can bring Yuki, Space, Shizu from the 2nd anniversary. Like, these characters also work. Plus, she can alt rush and reset your skills if you really need to do that. Like, you can reset the alt swap with Cleash. Definitely a viable option for you. And then, again, synergy is not really super great if you're going to go higher than EX2. So I would really caution you on doing that. But as far as other damage buffs are concerned, Shinsha has the alt buff already, and pierce resistance down. So we don't really need much more than that in terms of pierce, because I assume we're going to have pierce power coming from one of the other future characters. And we don't need alts. You can crit on this stage, so if you want to bring a crit focused character like the Masked Hero, with her rewind ability, that actually is really viable and potent. And if she's skill fused, you can get a little bit extra crit resistance down. Fire Milim, you can bring her. Warrior's Mind Guy isn't really going to do much because he only gives crit to physical allies. His alt buff is inferior to Shinsha's in this aspect. So, not really super useful there. But other crit characters that give you crit, or do a combination of, you could definitely make work. 3 more options before we move on. Elmesia, if you have her, I mean, she's not going to give any extra alt damage to Shinsha, but she will give 100% alt resistance down, which, if you combine that with Shinsha's 100% up, quite a bit of damage right there. It's just an expensive skill. Aqua, if you have access to her, is giving extra alt gauge, 25% every single time, which I don't really need on this team. It also stacks pierce resistance down, and then her actual skill, 60% pierce power, very impactful for a pierce focused team. So if you have Aqua, she would be a very good viable support character. And then we've got Wielder of Magic Shinsha, who is actually doing a lot for this team. Not only is she giving magic allies an extra 50% EX alt damage, so that stacks on top of the Shinsha buff, the new Shinsha buff, so that'd be 150% alt, but she's also giving oranges 60% extra protection gauge increase. Oranges also get 100% damage buff on a team that's doing quite a bit of damage. These are very impactful things, so if you don't have one of these other big-time 80-point supports, but you have this old Shinsha from last year, like, she is a very viable option for a number of different reasons for this team, because it's essentially just a power crept version of what her team was a year ago. So she's still going to work very, very well. So these are 3 additional damage support options you can bring. All right, and finally, to finish up the video, we're going to talk about substitutions you can make for Emils the Protector. Gonna be a little hard-pressed to do that because we don't have a lot of orange teams to begin with. The next best option is obviously going to be Wielder of Magic Milim. Leads magic allies, gives guaranteed pierce for magic allies, 40 skill points every time you use her instead of the passive 30 skill points you get every single turn automatically does make her a bit clunkier to use, but it's still an orange-focused magic meta, and she led an orange-focused magic meta exactly 1 year ago. So she's going to work fine. If you don't have either of them, you can bring New Year's Blessing Xion. Now, she's really not doing much for you except making oranges, because you're not running a physical team, so we're not going to get guaranteed crit, we're not going to get guaranteed synergy, so you're going to have to live with that. But she is still changing 3 and 3 to 6 oranges. She is still giving you a passive 30 skill points every turn, and you can make that work for the lower difficulty stages. Or you could bring the old orange protectors, either Toa or the even older Hakuro, who really got this whole trend of burst oranges started. They are definitely, not super great. They all do essentially the same thing. Hakuro, 40 skill points in the convert. Toa, the convert, the 40 skill points, and she gives extra skill points on oranges. Makes it a little bit nicer to use skills. But there aren't a lot of options for you. And if you have to resort to this, I mean, maybe you're better off just building a different team altogether and not trying to slam an old protector onto a new team. If you have New Year's Blessing, I've already recorded a lot of clips for EX2. New Year's Blessing can burst this EX2 down very easily, actually. So you're probably better off just using a totally different team altogether for if you have to make some really big substitutions to your protector or mills. But apart from that, that's generally what you want out of the Wielder of Magic meta. Damage supports, not a lot of ult swapping, but definitely options. Lots of damage supports. Did I say that? Lots of damage supports. And we're only going to get more as time goes on. So hopefully this video gives you an idea of what you need to be looking for. If you have any feedback for me on this video, please let me know in the comments. I'm always looking to improve this series. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.